Usually when I stand in the pulpit on Youth Sunday, I focus on extending words of wisdom to the youth of the church, particularly our graduating seniors, and invite the congregation to listen in. And I will do that toward the close of our message, but today I feel led to address those of us over 18 at first and invite the youth to listen in to that conversation. After making my first Holy Communion at the age of 8, I received a box of offering envelopes from the church office of the church in which I grew up. These envelopes were all my own. They were pink. They were smaller than the ones my parents had, but they had my own kid's number on them and the date of each Sunday for the coming year printed in inlaid script on the front of the envelope. So each week, my dad would write the check for our family's offering for the church and put it inside the big envelope, and then he would hand me a dime. And I would stick the dime in the envelope and seal it closed, and it was my responsibility to carry it to church on Sunday and place it in the offering plate. Now, I remember one Sunday when the ushers came forward with the baskets that they handed back and forth down the pews. In our home church, the baskets were actually on the end of long sticks, and they would reach across from one end of the pew to the other. Now, we were out of order in the pews in which we sat, which is a striking thing to happen because my father was very much a creature of habit. I was usually the second person in the pew, but this Sunday I was the first. So the ushers came forward, and I got my pink envelope ready out of my little purse, and I got ready to place it in the offering basket when the usher came down the center aisle and skipped right over me and placed the basket in front of my dad. Now, his oversight was unintentional. He was trying to do his best job, and he simply didn't think that a little girl sitting on the center of the aisle would have something to offer. But for those of you who have had the benefit of seeing the Inside Out movies, the second one is in theaters now, and I recommend it. This exchange is one of the memories in my life that I would claim as a core memory. So this means that it's one of those many memories that has stuck around for all of these decades and has had a hand in shaping my system of belief and my sense of self. Now, if I had to name how this small memory from some Sunday decades ago shaped me, I believe that the impact it had on my belief system is an affirmation that unequivocally children belong in church. Children belong. They belong to God, they belong to society, they belong to church. They are not adults in training, but they are themselves full people with gifts and needs and questions and hopes that shape themselves and impact and offer something to the world around them. They aren't simply our future, as songs might suggest, but children and youth are a part of us right now. Now, I am grateful because I believe that ELPC believes this too. I am here because a high school friend of mine loved her childhood church so much that she invited me to come and check it out, and here I am today, again, decades later. I am here also because Session cared so much about the youth and young adults of this church that they created a position for children and youth ministry and hired me to serve in it. A beautiful and rich element to the diversity we celebrate at ELPC is that we are an intergenerational congregation where Emerson is baptized and children sing songs in the chapel and youth play solos on their violas and flutes and where teenagers consider making commitments to God on the brink of their own adulthood and ask questions and milk cows and allow them, that really happened during confirmation, the confirmation class milked cows, and come alongside adults of our church that they might be nurtured in their journey of faith. Now, I think this element of diversity is one that we accept and see as so much a part of us that so often we take it for granted. We don't often ask, oh, what might we do in this new season of being church together to continue to be more welcoming and more supporting and more engaged in the lives of our children and youth? So on this Youth Sunday, I'd like to extend this invitation to all of us that we recommit ourselves to our own intergenerational identity as a family of faith, and that we explore what this might look like in this day and age, that we stretch our willingness to be uncomfortable with extra noise and movement in worship, and that we continue to discern and make intentional, deliberate decisions so that our children and youth and their families are welcomed and engaged in the life of our family of faith. I invite you to listen to the ideas and needs and hopes of our kids. I invite you to notice and include these insights and questions and talents that the youth and children of this church are already bringing to us and continue to ask what else they'd like to offer. I promise that what you have already noticed today will remain true. There are some awesome young people in our family of faith who bless us in many ways. Now, our gospel lesson for this morning that Will read is one that was chosen by the lectionary but affirmed by the youth who helped plan this service. It's a story that shows Jesus stopping what he's doing, not once but twice, to attend to those that others in society would most likely ignore or leave for dead. The woman with a condition of blood is 3 times an outcast by the societal and religious norms of the day, and she, like all of us, is yearning to be whole. Although her initiative alone in reaching out to touch Jesus' cloak offers her the physical healing she needs, Jesus stops, having compassion on her. Feeling the impact of her touch, he pauses what he's doing to pay attention, to connect with a woman who is starving for connection and who has lived on the margins of society herself for more than a decade. He affirms that she has been healed, restoring her not only to herself, but to the community who had kept her at arm's length. He assures her that she is loved. Once more, Jesus' travels are interrupted by the cries of a centurion whose daughter is dying. And Jesus turns on his heels and heads in the direction of the dying girl, raising her from her deathbed and offering her new life and instructions that she get something to eat. This girl, too young to offer much, only 12 years old herself, is the center of her family's world. And although Jesus could have healed her from afar, as Jairus was assured he could, he enters into her home and restores her and her family to community once more. He assures them that they are loved. Now, I know that the youth were drawn to this story of compassion that we see from Jesus in this text. Throughout this past year, they've been talking and thinking a lot about compassion and its role in our own and their Christian faith. And in the gospel for today, Jesus offers a beautiful example of how we might exercise compassion, demonstrating that compassion is not only that which heals an individual's body, but heals a community. that generates wholeness on multiple levels, that assures people that they are loved. And Jesus shows us that in order to exercise this compassion, in order to make change compelled by compassion, that we must be attentive to those others would easily miss. We must be willing to get out of our own way, to shift our focus and put our beliefs into action, that all persons are beloved children of God. Now, I stand here on Youth Sunday with a deep gratitude that ELPC is the kind of community that has helped to nurture this sense of compassion in action in the children and youth of our church. And I am grateful for the many ways that the kids of this church rise to that call. And so to the youth of our church, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your leadership today, but even more importantly, thank you for being such a dynamic presence, an important part of the life of this larger church, many of you having been so since you were born. Thank you for reminding us today of Christ's call to each one of us to put our faith into action. Thank you for noticing your own specific gifts and being willing to share them in worship to God. And thank you for the ways in which you help others here in this space and in our world nurture their gifts to God's glory. Thank you for being yourselves, for being inquisitive, curious, musical, creative, compassionate, funny, loving, dynamic people, and for sharing all of those gifts with us. Each one of you is already a blessing to your family and friends for sure, but a blessing to each one of us. And as I stand here today, I want to remind you of a truth that I hope you already know, a truth I hope you will carry with you, whether you are heading off to college in a few months or whether you will continue your journey in middle school or high school. I want you to know that you are loved. You are loved by those who know you, by those you have helped with a craft at Vacation Church School, or those with whom you play in a band at your school, with those with whom you have played hide and go seek over a lock-in here at the church. You are loved by your friends and your family, and you are loved by us. But what's more, you are loved by God, in whose image you were fearfully and wonderfully and uniquely made. You are loved by a God who has claimed you in your baptisms and redeemed you in grace. You are loved by a God who, through the power of the Holy Spirit, continues to guide and comfort and inspire you for the journey ahead. May you live each of your days with the knowledge of the love of God for you and within you. May you receive this blessing, and may you hear our thanksgiving for the blessing that you are already to all of us. Thank you. Thanks for being who you are and for being a part of ELPC.